Hey, folks, we're live, at least in the pre show part. Not live on radio yet, but we will be. Let's see. Just getting set up, making sure we're all good to roll. All right. We still don't have our tech totally worked out with the radio station. We're just waiting on some people that know the stuff to get back to us. So we can broadcast on radio, but we can't take calls. I can't play my bumps. Well, they don't hear them anyway. So we're going to do our best to do what we have to do over there. And you know what? We're still going to be here in the chat room in the YouTube channel. So I think it's all going to work out just fine. And my eyes are really wonky today. I got to put a couple of drops in my eyes. They are so dry. And that's scintillating radio, I realize. But hey, you know what? It's what it is. It's like tearing up, but not really. So we got about a minute and 20 seconds. And we'll be ready to roll. How's the weather in your neck of the woods? I hope it's good. Over here, it is bitterly cold. But it might affect Christmas a little bit. Because we have my daughters flying in. They were supposed to fly in Friday, but it's going to be nasty weather here on Friday. So tell you more about it in a minute. Hey, Matt Finn, Master Finn, Steve Clark. Good to see you. We'll get going here in just a moment or two. So we got to hook up to the live stream on the radio station, and then we'll be ready to fly. Well, it kind of does it automatically. I just have to watch it happen. So I got to be ready to roll at 3 minutes after the top of the hour, which is about 15 seconds away or less. So what is it? 9:02:49. Here we go. I'm going to go dark. We'll be right back. Stand by.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey, folks, happy Wednesday and welcome to yet another installment of the Intrepid radio program with me, your host, Scotty Roberts. And this is my show, Intrepid Radio. And it's right here over on subspace.radio. Should be able to hear us live over there in audio format only. If you want to join us for the video simulcast and the chat room, the live chat room, you can do that over on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. Now, there's no telling how long I'll actually be on YouTube. If they keep digging back into the 900, almost 900, if you include all the other videos I have that aren't just this radio show. I've got about 800 plus videos for this show and about another 100 of all kinds of other stuff. If they keep digging back 2, 3, and 4 years ago and find places where I have violated their standards that they now have, that they didn't have back then, no telling when. And of course, I don't know where those might show up. I was just hit with one last week, and it hit me again today. They've been going through, and I've been contesting it. They say, no, we hate to give you the bad news, but yes, you did promote misinformation and disinformation in talking about the last election. So I think I spent a whole 5 minutes on it on a morning lousy cup of coffee show that I did. And Rainey joined me for the rest of the time. We talked about something totally different. So somebody dredged that up, or they're sending out the bots looking for stuff like that so they can get rid of anybody on there who espouses a different ideal than what they want to have promoted on their station. Because frankly, you go listen to that show. Well, you can't now. It's gone. It's been banned. It's been taken off, removed, demonetized. Well, of course, you can't monetize something that isn't there. But all that to say, hopefully we will still have our YouTube channel as we proceed into the future because they're getting pretty tight and you only get 2 hits. This technically wasn't a hit. They said it was just a warning. So the next one they find would be a warning. And I'm pretty sure I've said stuff in there somewhere along the way that somebody's going to want to find offensive, at least on the inside of YouTube. So it's very interesting. I can't see for shit today, folks. So I got to put my glasses on. And even those aren't helping very much. So what's everybody got to say over there? I can't take any calls, of course, until after the program when we're off the radio station because they won't pick up yet tonight. So save your questions for your calling in questions till the captain's cabin. So it's good to see everybody that's here tonight. And go to the Rumble, says Professor Bauer. I got to find something different. I can tell you that. I don't like the fact that somebody is going to jeopardize 800 videos because I said something that their policy doesn't like. And it's not like I was being untoward or doing something illegal. It's that I was talking about the election in a way that they didn't like, obviously, or COVID in the way they didn't like, or something like that. So now that you've got a platform that in the last few years has decided you can't speak freely anymore, that, that speech is dangerous. What if our founding fathers had said, we can allow all this kind of speech, freedom of speech, except where somebody might feel that it's dangerous because it violates their narrative? I didn't read that in the Constitution. Of course, YouTube isn't the Constitution of the United States, but I do think it's interesting that YouTube has enjoyed the benefits of building its company into whatever they're worth nowadays in a country that has constitutionally protected rights that they don't extend to their own people that post on their site. So that becomes problematic to me. And nobody really wants to have a decent conversation with you. I keep getting told in generalities, yes, you did indeed violate our policy. You did put forward misinformation. And so, well, could you be specific, please? Could you tell me what it was I said that was misinformation or disinformation or really violating some standard? Well, that one's probably easy because they can build their own standards and say, now you violated them. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but that was a fresh email I just read in the last half an hour. So I'm just letting you know. So hopefully we will still be on YouTube for a while yet, a long time, because I like the platform. I don't like their censorship, but at least they can't take my life. And they can't do anything like that. But they can silence my voice if they don't like what I'm saying. Not because it's a bad voice or bad ideas, but it's because they don't agree with them. So there you go. So we'll move on from that before somebody at YouTube goes, hey, dig out as much as you can on this guy. I want him dead. I want his family dead. They're going to Al Capone me. So anyway. There's nothing to be sorry about, Kelly Bell. It just is what it is. If you were commenting that to me, so it is what it is. So we move onward and forward. Hey, Leslie, good to see you, and Pearson Castile, good to see you as well, brother. And Steve Clark, Remelian, Master Finn is here. Kevin Thompson is here. Good to see you, Kevin Thompson. And it was nice talking to you a little bit today. Over on Ken Ballos, Morning Coffee with KB. He ain't afraid to say what he wants to say. So, Scotty, if you leave YouTube, then I will be lost as I don't do other sites other than Facebook. Well, if I leave YouTube, I'll send you a link on how to, and I set up somewhere else, I'll send you a link on how to get there, Steve. So no worries. I appreciate that, though. That's very nice of you to say. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about, because I've spent 10 minutes on this already. And it's grueling. It's a big topic. It's a topic that should be talked about. You might view it as me ballyhooing or crying in my soup or whining or whatever, however anybody wants to look at that. This is a very real topic, that you have platforms like this that can censor you if they don't like what you're saying. And it's not that you're violating some moral code, it's that you're violating their narrative. And there might be some nice people that work over there. They've been very polite to me, and I appreciate that. But they will still censor you if they disagree with you. And is that something that should be talked about? Yeah, especially since that censorship only seems to allow one kind of mode of thinking. You can apply that to politics or morality or whatever you want to. And that's where it becomes a problem. What if they said, hey, you can't talk about your religion anymore? You can't talk about God anymore? Hypothetical. What if they said, hey, you can't mention the word God? It goes against our community standards, because there might be somebody out there that doesn't believe what you believe. They might be offended by that. Or there might be some zealot that is out there that might want to commit atrocities because he hears you talking about something in a loving way or disseminating information. What if it was to do an extreme stupidity like that? How would you feel if a public platform that has the power to censor you yet enjoy? Here's what I think. I think that YouTube or Facebook or anybody that censors somebody's right to free speech as guaranteed by the Constitution should then have to suffer some loss of their rights, or they should have to pay extra taxes for it, or something. I don't know, something that works against the system that they have in play, because it violates the rights of somebody else, all because we live in this woke boo-hoo, oh, you're offending me, civilization now, this society that we've become. Nobody can say anything anymore if it might offend somebody over there. And generally the people offended aren't the people that should even be worried about it. It's like the whole issue with naming sports teams after Native Americans. Most Native Americans I know are like, we don't care. Whatever, dude. You ask Ruben Fasthorse if he cares the sports team. He goes, no, I think that honors our warriors. It honors our people in a sports team way. But the people who complain about it most are the people that don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak. But they want to be crazy about censoring people and watching out so you don't offend anybody. You know, whoever guaranteed us, does the Constitution, will somebody please show me in the Constitution where we have a guarantee to not be offended by somebody's free speech? I'll wait. You know why I can wait? Because anybody who knows their Constitution knows that isn't there. There is no guarantee against being offended by somebody else's expression of free speech. And we've got laws that will protect you beyond that. So, anyway, I am doing radio. What can I do for you?
Abby and Brenna are coming till Saturday night.
I know. I've got email and all. That can wait till after the radio show, and I can talk to you. How about that? Bye. I love you. So, been cracking down on the familial interludes, by the way, because nobody really pays attention. It's a respect issue, I think, with the young children. The younger ones are easier. As they get a little older, they're like, I'm a teenager and I can show you that. They just come and if they don't say anything, they'll stand right there on the other side of my desk. She was just standing there going. And so finally you have to go, what? You don't hear me broadcasting? You don't hear me on talking here? So What does Matt Finn have to say? I got to put on my glasses to read it. Most people don't want to address their own problems because that would take personal accountability. So they'll just make problems for everyone else. There's something to that, Matt. I agree with you. Sarah Yusuf says creating rules and standards for plurality is difficult. Yeah, it is. I hope you're all hearing that screaming on the radio. Thank you. So, once again, a respect issue, a recognition issue. So, did I scream on the radio just now? I was just yelling at people in my house that seem to forget casually that I spend this hour on the radio. So that we're talking to other people here. I got a burr under my saddle tonight. So they act like dark shadow people at the end of the bed. Yeah, very true, Sarah. Creating rules and standards for plurality is difficult. Yeah, I get that. But I think the less rules you have, I'm going to sound like a libertarian here. Perhaps the less rigid rules you have, the less laws you have, you set simple laws in place. Like our house, we could make a law for my children of don't pick up somebody else's book. Don't get food on somebody else's device screen. We could do all that stuff. We could make 100 different rules in our house about how to handle what you do with other people's things that you shouldn't be doing. Or you have the one rule: don't touch anybody else's stuff unless they give you permission. Boom. That's the rule in our house. All the other ones are superfluous. I think that's the way a society should run. The fewer laws you have, the better. But the laws better be damn straight. Now, people are going to look for loopholes. Yeah, sure they will. Well, that's why we have judges. That's why we have legislators. I get it. You're going to legislate yourself to hell and back. If you're stuck on legislation, the same for YouTube and Facebook and all the other internet companies out there, the social media companies. The fewer regulations you have, the better. So I guess their regulation is if it doesn't match our standards, we have the right to pull it. So there it is. Do they have the right to do that in this country? Yeah, I suppose, because I have the right to go somewhere else. But I don't want to. I want them to treat us all fairly. But you can't legislate fairness either, by the way, folks. So, hey, Roger Rabbit, good to see you. Glad you're here tonight. So I wanted to talk about virtue tonight. That was the topic I posted on. And virtue, I'm not talking about being virtuous. Are you virtuous? Did you come in here to cry about something, child? What? I'm sorry. Why don't you go upstairs and see Mom? Don't worry about the kitty. All right. Let's walk into Dad's office and cry about not being able to find the kitty when I'm doing a radio show. It shouldn't matter. It really shouldn't matter. I'm just crabby tonight. I'm crabby. I'm grouchy. I'm edgy. I'm pissy. I'm moany. And then that stuff. It's just like, I love my kids, and I love my kids to be able to come in and join in the show. But they'll do it. If I let them do it during this show, they'll do it when I'm on somebody else's show being interviewed. My kids will walk in and start screaming and fighting in the room. I'm like, get out of my room. I hadn't noticed, said Matt Finn. There it is. You're right, Romeldian. People have forgotten all about respect. Scotty, are in the PMS stage. No. Is that the please more sex stage? That's what it is for me. Please, more sex. May I have some more, please? Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm backed up, clogged up. Got to run some Drano on me. So Anyway, virtue. Virtue is this thing we can look at and we go, are we talking that we all need to be virtuous? That we need to be puritanical? Is that what being virtuous means? And there's my wife. Come on over. You're the third person to walk in during the radio show. Now that you're here, come on over and say hi to
I
everybody.
didn't have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm just walking down here before I go to bed.
All right. All
Look at
right.
these beautiful books.
Oh, look at
Okay,
that.
yeah, in there.
There's some beautiful books you can get. You won't get them by Christmas, sorry, but
It's a great gift.
these are bought by other people for Christmas gifts. So
Hi, Leslie. Hi, Steve. Sorry if you heard me yell.
it's all right.
God, I'm tired of being molested.
Who's molesting you?
Rowan. She walks past me and grabs my boob. I'm standing there talking to Jamie and she's leaving.
Our 11-year-old daughter
and
grabs
she
your
grabbed
boob.
my ass on the way past to walk down here to look for the cat. And I just had enough of being
It's because she's
gross.
doing
It's like,
things that she
ugh.
thinks are cool.
Hey, Uncle Dave.
So,
Hi, Morgan.
the 11-year-old is going through that stage of, I've got to do everything I possibly can to show you how cool I am.
Right. And being obnoxious is a big part of that.
Obnoxiosity.
So just all night, not to be like, I don't feel good today. I got this headache thing going on. And it's been all day. And Jamie, which the kids know very well, and the freaking kids, man, as soon as Jamie walks through the door,
It's a friend of ours.
Jamie, look at what I can do.
They
And
put
it's
on
like,
the show. You
shut
guys who have kids
up.
know what that's all
And
about.
they're fighting and bickering. And it's like, just shut up. We just want to watch TV. We just wanted to silently binge watch TV and play on our phones like two normal adults who sit on the couch and don't chat.
Rainey and Jamie.
Yeah, Rainey
I
and Jamie.
was working and I went up and I had some of the roast that Rainey did in the crock pot.
Yeah.
It was like and there's like a brothy. I've gotten into hot broth in the last year or so. I just seem to
hot
like it.
broths, they're great.
Hot broth. Would you like some of the broth of me wee, shillelagh?
Right, gross.
So so I had some of that and I'm sitting on the sofa and at least 5 times Rainey stops what she's watching and puts it on pause. She's watching with her friend Jamie. And because the kids are being too noisy. And Jamie brought her teenage boy over too.
Yep,
So
just one.
so he's over.
But then the girls have to fight with the boys, and then the boys have to run in and
It's
out.
like
And it's the grunchy.
stay away from the
running out to chase
boys.
Kids, it's like just go to your rooms and shut up. Get on a device.
That's right.
Go away. Veg
I can't
out.
see anything tonight.
Just shh. Quiet kids.
Yeah.
Kids.
Dang kids. 'Tis the season for brothy soups. Yes, it is, Sarah. I enjoy brothy soups. I like things I could eat. Oh, it's the dog.
Yeah.
And then the dog's down here.
dog
Who's
is
pushing on my
really
leg? I thought it was
needy.
her foot. I look down. The dog's like needy. Oh, I got to be in between you
she's
and
not
mom.
Really pushing on your foot. She's trying to get as close to me as
She's
she
trying to
can.
get as close to Rainey as she can, and my leg just happens to be right there. So she's pushing herself in between.
Not that the dog doesn't love me the most, anyways, and always want to be next to me. But I know,
Yeah.
she's got to know that I don't feel good tonight because she's like just right on top of me.
She is. And then the kids are the same way. So Flynn's not that way. Flynn's
Wanna
like,
go for a walk?
I'm out.
You want to go for a walk? Go get your leash.
All right. So, yeah, that's our house.
Yeah. it's our house.
So it's supposed to be. We're supposed to get how much snow? 4 to 12
I
inches
thought it was 48
overnight tonight.
today, and I don't remember what we're supposed to get tonight.
And it's below 0. And
Yeah, they
the
canceled
wind
school for
is
tomorrow.
supposed to be gusting up to 40 to 50 miles an hour tomorrow. And you combine all of that together with it was 9 below 0 this morning when I was out driving the kids to school. And because we don't make them walk in the 9 below 0.
Right now, it is 0 degrees. Feels like -12. We're at 89% humidity with a dew point of -3.
What's the wind doing?
Wind northwest at 6 miles an hour.
It's only 6 miles an hour right now.
Roads are snowy.
And so we'll see what happens.
We got snow coming. The little blue dot is us.
There it is.
Where we go? We'll go that way. Ah!
So the hello.
Hello?
So my daughters are flying in on Friday,
No.
and now they've had to move it to Saturday because of this. But then on Sunday they got to go to my ex-wife's parents' house, so mother's house. So we'll see my kids for a half a day for Christmas because of the weather. So there you go. But
Monday afternoon they're planning on.
Oh, they're going to come back here on Monday?
That's what they were Monday during the day we were going to go see.
Oh yeah.
Avatar movie.
The Avatar movie. I think that should be fun. Everybody likes that. Got to see it in 3D.
Oh my god.
You.
Am I going to be able to handle 3D?
In that top drawer, I think. Oh, there's one. Can't see through my Gradu-filled glasses.
I get really easily motion sick.
Yeah, she does.
So
I do too, but
3D, unless I'm really into the movie real quick, it starts to make me get that squishy feel.
I love the 3D technology, but
maybe it's better. I haven't seen a 3D movies for like 10 years, so maybe things are better.
Did you see Avatar, the first one, in 3D with us?
Nope, I think I let you all go alone because it was like,
She didn't want to see the first one there.
not in 3D.
There's some other 3D movie I thought you watched. I don't know if you lasted the whole movie or not. I can't remember what it would have been though.
I remember I tried to watch one, and I did a lot of closed eyes. I really just sat there with my eyes closed.
I've heard there's some really good stuff in this movie.
If I go like this so that I can't see much in the peripheral and maybe shut one eye, but then it's really blurry as it's moving on the screen.
There it is. So we were talking about virtue. What do you think about virtue? What do you think it is?
Well, there's the 7 virtues, right?
Yeah,
and I don't remember what they were. I don't know. What do you want to know about virtues?
Just wondered if you thought about it much, if it ever comes up when somebody says they want to live a virtuous life. What do you think of them?
I think they're probably really weird people.
Stodgy.
Who are, narcissistic and trying to make you think they're something they're not actually.
Okay.
That's what I see. Someone wants to be virtuous.
Virtuous. Do you think virtuous is... I wrote an article on virtue once, and I started it by saying virtue is like humility. Once you say you've got it, you've pretty much lost it. Mm-hmm. I'm virtuous.
Right? And I stick that all together with people who are like, I'm Christian. that I'm Christian and God loves me and God loves you and I'm here to do my best. And that means they're pretty crappy people, right?
Well, it seems to me they're trying to convince themselves of what they need to be.
Themselves. So when someone says they're going to live the virtuous life and they're being virtuous and talk about it, it's too much. It means they're not.
Leslie says, Rainey, I do too. Anally retentive.
Nice.
There it is. You say puckering assholes.
Right.
So, not to offend anybody, YouTube. I use the word asshole. I hope that's not against your standards. Because some people are offended by that.
Everybody has one.
But some people are offended by that. So should that be a standard that you can't say that word? Because some people might be offended. Or do you tell them grow up and move on or turn the channel? Well, then but if it comes to politics or...
Elon Musk should probably buy YouTube or make something else like YouTube. So nobody has to use YouTube who's going to drop you for speaking your truth.
Not to get back on that topic, but there it is. So let's see what else we got. Michelle Canham Free just in from Madison with Nick. Luckily, we missed only bad weather. Any bad weather. That's good. So maybe it won't be as bad as they predict. You know, we see that all the time. In the summertime, we get predictions of rain and rainstorms and thunderstorms, and they never happen. Yeah. So it's like you get a drop of rain, you're like, that was it?
Right, and then I get let down because I expect that like bad thunderstorm and the wind and to maybe see the tornado whipping by out past the window.
Past the window, down the block. Not on our street.
Not so
it's over there.
So I can watch it from the window and not have to worry about the window shattering.
Yeah, there you go. With the suction. So virtue seems to be seen as My eyes are really bad today.
Culturally desirable traits. Desirable. I should probably
Here, maybe if I throw it up here.
Can you make a bit?
Virtue
There
seems
we
to be seen
go.
as culturally desirable traits. Yeah, there you go. I wrote in the article I wrote, and I was going to call this up and present this tonight too as I'm talking about this stuff. But the article I wrote, not a very long one. If I can find it, it's right here. I started by saying virtue is like humility, and that once you brag about having it, you've lost it, pretty much. I'm humble, or I have virtue, or you can take that anywhere. I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm devout, and I say my prayers every day. Once people start talking about that, you lose it. And it doesn't manifest itself, virtue, to us by an act of magic or some kind of overt declaration that we're paragons of purity and good intent. It's the expression of the inner soul of our true humanity, not the dumb-witted, dumb-assed control of any outside force. It rather creeps in quietly, kind of unaware, when we strive to do what it is that's good or right, despite our many flaws and failures along the way. And of course, you're going to have somebody come along, well, how do you know it's good and right? What if it's not good and right for me? Maybe this is what I'm doing with YouTube. It's their standard, not mine. It's the lion heart that eclipses our inner mulings, is what virtue is. Not when we're faced with moments of decisiveness, but when we're forced to choose the right hand or the left. But when we sit in a heap to wipe the blood, the sweat, the many tears of having accomplished something greater than ourselves, greater than our inmost fears, deeper than our misgivings and our mistakes that may be strewn along the path behind us. Virtue is imbued with the spirit of not turning back, of never allowing defeat to win the day. You ever feel defeated?
Every day, hundreds of times a day. I think that's part of having children.
Yeah. There's the defeat that's there.
Yeah.
Virtue is defined by standards of the perceiver, says Sarah. Yeah, to a certain extent, they have to be. When can you set the boundaries of what virtue is by yourself? When does that come along? When are you able to do that? Is it when you look at, is it solely enforced upon us by the way other people think? You think virtue comes from the way other people perceive what you're doing? And so you have to meter yourself according to their points of view?
So my mom ears clicked in when you started saying that, and I was listening to the kids
play
upstairs. So want to state that again?
Virtue, is that something, Sarah says, it's something that the standards are set by the perceiver. Do you think that? Are you the perceiver? Are other people, the way you act, is your virtue measured by the way other people see you or by the way you see yourself?
Both.
Both?
It's both, because no matter what, your opinion of your virtue is going to be different than somebody else's. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how you feel about yourself. Someone's always going to see you differently than you feel.
This is true.
You can't. Yeah.
Grumpy Stack says, take your damn weather back. It's not my weather.
No.
It got foisted on me too, Grumpy.
Right?
I got nothing to do with it. I just got to shovel it.
We're sharing it because we don't want it anymore.
That's right. So I think virtue is this thing of not turning back, not allowing defeat to overcome you, not to be brought under by the power of fear and the despair of failure. Virtue is never about the past nor the future, but it's always about the present, what we're doing in the moment. And it may have and there's times I act in ways that I know are not virtuous.
Yeah,
I'm like, fuck that. And hey, don't agree so fast,
I'm gonna.
Miss Non-Virtuous.
I'm more virtuous than you.
I'm more virtuous than thee. I found a witch. May I burn her? And so it may have the caterwauls of the past that scream for us to never try again because we've fallen short so many times before. It also bears the responsibility of knowing what may lay ahead based on what we now do or how we now act. And it's a test of our response, coupled with our ability to step into the now with a resolve to leave self behind. And, that's a pretty big deal. That's the thing we were always told when I was in my church days. It was all about leaving self behind and living for others and being a servant to other people, like Jesus was a servant. This is what we were taught. This was the moral life we were supposed to lead. And so it was one of, I remember Chuck Swindoll, I mentioned him once not long ago. He used to say, he was a radio pastor, not a televangelist, not drumming for your money all the time. He was a pastor, and they recorded his teachings, his sermons, his lessons, and they all went out on the radio show 5 days a week. And he was really good in what he did. But he was that guy who said being a servant as a Christian, being a servant in the church, being a servant to help other people. He says it's not those times where everybody sees what you're doing. He says virtue or being a servant is that thing that nobody sees, nobody notices, nobody pats you on the back, nobody gives you accolades. It's the way he put it in one of his sermons. He says it's getting your fingernails dirty when nobody knows you need to clean them. It's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And then he said, that's what defines virtue. That's what defines being a servant. That's what defines all these things. And so there's still going to be failure no matter what you do, no matter how hard you strive to do what you know in your heart is right and good to do. And there's going to be failure. There's still going to be setbacks. There's going to be adversities. There's going to be people, even the good people in your life, like my beautiful wife can say to me, I might be trying to do something good. She goes, you're right. Like you can do that.
Right.
maybe why don't you start cleaning up your own desk before you tell us how to clean?
Right.
And it's like, she'll go over with the kids. And it's like, you don't tell us nothing. So, there's that. People who are even good people with good intent in your life, they're going to say things. They're going to do things. They're going to be the critics. But there's still going to be the critic who doesn't count. Like President Roosevelt said, Teddy Roosevelt. He said, there is no effort without error and shortcoming. He said, are you the one who actually tries to strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotion, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring something great, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And I take great inspiration from the examples of what virtue truly is, both historically and in literature. People who stepped outside the door and off the threshold, not always fully cognizant that their next footfall might be the defining moment of who they truly are, despite who they and others believed them to be up to that point. The Abraham Lincolns, the Martin Luther Kings, the William Wallaces were great people that were filled with flaws and personal shortcomings.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Oh, yeah, they were. Oh, yeah, you know it. And she's going, yeah, you should put yourself right up alongside them.
Yeah.
I'll gladly do
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And so they put themselves in action of engaging in something greater than themselves, knowing that the goal was more important than anything else that they once believed or had done. And they weren't perfect people, but they gained virtue by rising above their imperfections. That's, I think, a defining moment for virtue. You look at the picture I've got up here on my wall that my daughter Bryn drew for me. We've talked about that recently. but the fictional Samwise Gamgees, the Baggins gardener, was who he was in the book, at great personal cost to himself, never left Frodo's side in that story, even carrying him up the slopes of Mount Doom on his back when Frodo couldn't take another step. He knew there was something greater than himself that he had to accomplish. And what are we hanging on to, Sam? Asked Frodo. Frodo says that there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. From Tolkien's book, The Return of the King, I have this quote here. There, peeping among the cloud rack above a dark tor high up in the mountains, Sam saw a white star twinkle for a while. The beauty of it smote his heart as he looked up out of the forsaken land, and hope returned to him. For like a shaft, clear and cold, the thought pierced him that in the end, the shadow was only a small and passing thing. There was light and high beauty forever beyond its reach. And that was Tolkien in The Return of the King. So virtue isn't about seeking acclaim or praise or having somebody watch what you do. But I always try to get my wife's attention. Watch me do this.
Oh my God.
Look what I can do. Look what I can do.
Look at, I scrubbed the toilet.
Look, I scrubbed the toilet. Look at me. Oh, we had some nasty stuff around the base of the toilet the other day. And I'm like, did that leak out of the pipe or something or what? It was this brown goo.
I think the
all
boys in this
around.
house need to make sure they are pointing
The
at
boy.
Cheerios in the toilet instead of not.
I always aim to please. Flynn is like, I can see my son Flynn. He didn't care. It's taken me 3 years to get him to still not shut the toilet or flush it after he pees. And I don't know how you can forget such a simple thing. But I've seen my son in the morning. He'll leave the door open. I'm walking by the bathroom. He's like, he's peeing into the toilet. Blah, 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 blah,
Not
blah.
awake.
Not awake. And I'm like, son, pay attention. You're missing. So, yeah. But anyway, the point is I got down on my knees for 20 minutes and scrubbed back behind that toilet. And there's no way to do it. You can't where's the gross utensil that I can hold in my hands? You can't find one. You know, get down there with your hands and the shit and and scrub it and bleach it. I bleached the whole back. And so what did I say to Rainey? I have cleaned the toilet and the toilet floor and I bleached it.
And he used my expensive bathtub cleaning sponge that got thrown away.
It was a triangular sponge. I was down there on my knees and I thought for sure there was a sponge under the sink. There wasn't. And I saw one on the bathtub and I went, screw it. I'm using that sponge.
It's a special heavy duty sponge to clean the lime and calcium because we have really heavy water here.
And it costs like $1 million. Oh, wait. Or is it $3?
It was $5 for a 2-pack.
$5 for a 2-pack. So $2.50 a piece.
$5.47.
Oh, $5.47. So
when you're broke,
yeah,
$5.47 is a lot of money.
Well, I saw one of those sponges out on the garage floor.
That's the one from the garbage can because somebody conveniently left the garbage can sitting on the stair of the garage.
I set it out on the step in the garage.
And then when I was carrying groceries, knocked it over. And then I figured I'm not picking that up because I know what it cleaned.
Yeah.
So somebody should have brought the can all the way to.
Somebody should have brought that can all the way out to the trash can.
This virtuous lady would have brought it all the way out to the trash and just taken care of it.
She's virtue signaling. I would have taken it all the way to the trash because I know that was good for my family and my house.
Or I would have put it in a garbage bag, tied it up, and left it in the
So virtue,
doorway.
It's not about seeking acclaim or praise, but it's the recognition that all that has come before and all that we perceive is yet to come will never dissuade us from being who we must be in order to do what must be done. And it's not always the turning back of some great evil, but it's most assuredly comprised of the daily small things of life. It's all about striving above our circumstances and becoming who we truly are. That's the virtue that I'm talking about. That's the stuff that I think we all need to see, and we all need to. What is this? Just save it and quit. I'm shutting the window where I had that and quit. Oh, look, I didn't even see him. We got Ruben Fasthorse sitting out in the wings. What time have we got? It's 9:45. Ruben, I can bring you in, but nobody on the radio can hear you because we have a tech difficulty. If you want to sit there for about 10-ish more minutes, well, 13 minutes, we go to the captain's cabin, then I can call you in. So he's giving me the thumbs up. I thought you were flipping me off because my glasses aren't working today. He's like, I'm so like, Ruben, can you sit there? You can sit and enjoy it from the wings. And he's like, yeah, like hell I will. So now there's a virtuous man, and I'll tell you, and I'll tell him why I think so. So when we get to the captain's cabin portion of the show, because what do we got? It's 9:46 right now, so we've only got what do we go till 58 minutes after the top of the hour? Is it 55? I didn't remember. No, not yet. What, you got better things to do?
I'm ready. I was ready for bed at 5:00.
Well, go to bed.
I'm starting to get a headache again. So
yeah.
Good night. I love you.
Good night. I love you too.
Good night. I love you guys.
I will see you a little later. So
good.
there's my
kids won't scream. It's been fun. I don't feel good. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. So, and you know, I don't blame my wife for my kids screaming. I blame my kids. So, but sometimes my wife is very vocal in telling them to shut up. So, yes, especially when she doesn't feel very well. So, good night, Rainey, everybody says. And Ruben, you keep sitting over there in the wings, and when the show is over, we'll get you in here for the captain's cabin. So be patient. Patience is a virtue, so I hear. And I'm one of probably the most impatient people that exists. So I don't think virtue is something that you can gauge either by, oh, have I done the checklist today? Am I doing the right things today? But virtue matters. And there, you have to have an appreciation of virtue's formidable history so you can highlight its importance in allowing the individual to engage with life meaningfully. Virtue is this mindset of character. It's character excellence. It's making people better than they already are. How can you do that? Especially when you struggle, you have your own struggles. How can you be the kind of person that can have the character that makes somebody better and does better things for people? Values undergirding virtues provide the vision toward these long-term goals. And an appreciation of virtue's formidable history can highlight its importance in allowing any individual to engage with life meaningfully. And a discussion of the present countervailing cultural trend of postmodernism, that's a whole topic by itself. You know what postmodernism is, I hope, puts a point on the precarity of virtue and the meaning in today's world. And postmodernism, it's this predominant cultural movement of our time, beginning in the 50s, kind of peaking in the 70s. It has radically altered the meaning of reality on many multiple levels. Postmodernism inclines us to react skeptically to any fixed, objective, or universally accepted meaning about identity, about truth. And it's a challenge that runs counter to the centrality of meaning, diminishing the reliability of the experiences and beliefs that one accrues during lifetime. Dave is saying that, my friend, is the keynote of masonry. We make good men better. There it is. Yes, I remember that when I came to some of the meetings. High reliability, meaningful life engagement, imbue an individual with essential self-confidence, a sense of agency, a desire to self-improve, we used to say, take personal inventory, self-examination, and the self-esteem that comes from believing one's values are consistent in a world of inevitable change. You know why I do those? Where'd they go? When I have done these in the past. Remember these? And I do them from time to time. These sparking courage, 50 ways to be bold. These little matchsticks I have that have messages on them. 50 ways to be bold. Why do I teach my sons and my daughters to be bold, to be confident? Why do you think they act the way they do? Some of that is the outcome of trying to teach them to be confident and bold and put forward what you believe. I used to tell my daughters, Abby and Bryn, when they were smaller, they were, early teens, about the same age Rowan is and Flynn is now. I used to tell them, you need to do what's right no matter what anybody's going to say to you. Don't worry about people think you're part of the uncool cast of people at school because you're doing the right thing. I said, why don't you I remember telling Abby and Bryn specifically, why don't you make it cool to do the right thing? And it's not that you can't have fun. That doesn't mean you can't have any fun. It means you're elevating a standard. You got to look at what meaning means. The word meaning. Meaning is a cognitive and emotional sense that ideas, values, behaviors are worthwhile personally and instrumental to functioning well in culture and in our society. Meaning permeates values. We can talk to Ruben in a little bit here. He's got meaning to the things that he believes and puts forward. Most of us here have meaning, but do you ever stop and define what it is you mean, what it is you believe, why you put those forward? Why do you want to be known for the things that you believe and the meaning in your life? Meaning permeates everything. And these faculties permit self-aware learning from experience, proactive planning, which might manifest as personal goals, improved behaviors. Meaning affords a position of strength for freedom to improve. Do you live with meaning? Do you have purpose? The framework of meaning and virtue prepares one for conscientiousness, something I am teaching my kids every day. Be conscientious. What does that mean? Well, that means have meaning. Look out for everybody else around you. Be conscious of your surroundings. Conscientiousness. It supports emotional intelligence. The foundation for high-value payrolls and payoffs in life. And as a result, emotional skill performance grows and amplifies emotional literacy. Interpersonal and social dialogues become more fluid, enhancing empathic reciprocity. You get coming back what you put out. You reap what you sow, in other words. And you can look at all the background and the history of history of virtue and meaning and things like that. But how are our virtues distinct from values? Virtue is a character trait. It guides your moral excellence in action. Leadership is considered superior virtue in Greek philosophy, and it was wisdom in determining ends and means. Its objective was practical and sound judgment. Virtues often afford a stable psychological position for contemplation and guidance, things to meditate on. And they're a psychological mindset that provide a behavioral compass. It offers this framework and the driving force for living a life whose mission statement is practical self-improvement and social enhancement. Values, by comparison, provide a vision toward long-term goal setting. Values help us decide what's essential to uphold. The fundamental difference between value and virtue is that values show one's visions, principles or behavior, standards, which might be socially influenced. Values are visions. Virtues are their incremental performance. So values are the vision. Virtue is the incremental performance of making that happen. So I'm looking at the clock, trying to determine how much time I really have left. I think I have 2.5 minutes left, and we're done on the radio station. So we can get into all kinds of morality and ethics. Ethics is an important word. It comes from the word ethos in the Greek, or mores, the Latin. Together they figure how groups of individuals choose to behave and interact. Ethics are called moral philosophy. That's what I think YouTube needs, the moral philosophy, the ethics of setting forward the censorships and the principles that they want to operate by. So examining virtues, examining the underlying values that constitute one's morality, whether implicit or explicit, shows that meaning exists. Even within a cultural time frame, dominant themes preserve the historical threads from which virtues grow. Hope, fairness, concern, well-being are implicit emotional threads of subtle prominence, and social progress and self-improvement counter the blur of postmodern disillusionment. Could substantive considerations of value and virtue be a formidable redress to the postmodern themes of identity, uncertainty, wokeness, all of that's out there, and untruth? It's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about and putting into practice. Right now, we got to go out from the radio audience. Radio audience, thank you for being here tonight. Join us in the Captain's Cabin over on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And for now, let's get out of here and be back here on Friday night. We're going to have a little bit more. We might have a guest Friday night, but that might be moved into next week. So I want to thank you all for being here over on the radio. And for now, you know what? Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
All right, folks, welcome to the captain's cabin. R. So this is my fast pirate for tonight. R. R me mateys. R me hearties. R me deck swabbers. Me mizzen mast climbers. Me jib haulin', rope totin', pigtailed tarrin pirates. There you go. That's that. For quick. R. I clicked on the wrong link, said Sarah Youssef. I'm sorry, Sarah. Really sorry. So it's good to have, if my wife was virtuous, by the way, she'd have brought me a sandwich and something to drink while she was here. So I want to bring Ruben Fasthorse in because he's sitting out in the wings. Let's bring you in. Hey, Ruben. I
think you need a sea shanty. Safe and sound and home again. Let the waters roll, Jack. Safe and sound and home again. Let the waters roll, Jack. Long we've tossed in the rolling waves. Now we're safe for home, Jack.
Can you do that in Lakota?
On the rolling bay. Rally, 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 rally. That's from
the one I like. Going down to old Maui, me boys, going down to old Maui. We're homeward bound with the Arctic from the Arctic round, rolling down to old Maui. And that's great when you have a bunch of guys singing and you're harmonizing.
I know. You need a couple of Guinnesses or a scotch.
Yeah, we do. Or I need Sam here to sing sea shanties with me.
There you go. He'll
do Gaelic storm songs with me.
I worked the boats in Alaska on the it's the Bering Sea, and it was tough as nails, tough as a motherfucker. Sorry to say my French, but
no, that's all right.
And one, my get this, Chea, older brother, Chea, my shift was like I started work at 10 at night and I was done by 2 p.m. the next day.
Wow.
And when I smoked, I stood outside and I was smoking a cigarette and I saw 7 walruses. Here's a Lakota boy from South Dakota. And
watching the walruses while he's smoking.
Oh my God. And I saw, I'm used to seeing buffalo, antelope, coyotes, whatnot, but I never saw 7 walruses come out and breathe and start barking to each other. And I was, I felt like I was in Lord of the Rings in New Zealand, because on the west coast of
where I
was working, I saw like a herd of caribou just running across. It was crazy.
I've got to ask. Oh, you got a conversation going on there?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You seem a little loose in your riggings tonight. Have you been having a wee bit of a nip? Because I've got some here I might imbibe of myself. So you sound loosened up tonight.
No, I'm tired.
I'm that.
But that's about it. But I was regaling some of the things that I witnessed in my life, things that I would never ever see.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend's telling me I'm drunk, but
Susie will tell the truth. Our wives always tell on us. Oh, well, I'm just a little tired and my mind is a little tired. He is drunk. But you know, they're drunk because we always go, we don't just go, shh. We go, shh.
But there's things that I remember that would not come forthwith right away, because I would never tell you that I saw 7 walruses swim out of the water.
I mean, that's not something that comes up in normal conversation.
Well, being
Yeah.
a prairie dog,
You know, I went
myself,
to
I just like blown away by the concept of seeing 7 walruses rise up out of the water,
That's
and
crazy.
they're big as cows.
I
They're
would
huge.
love to see something like that.
Oh my God. And then the next morning I woke up because I was working on the fishing boat, the barge, and I saw 22 eagles. 22 eagles.
Wow.
Who the hell sees that? What Native American sees 22 eagles sitting there, and they're pecking out the eyes of the fish. And these are huge. They're pickerel, they're trout, they're salmon, just huge. Huge as my
eagles
arm.
are no small bird. Eagles can have a 6
22 wingspan. 22 wingspan.
Wow.
And you the only way we can deter them away from the fish was with a hose of water, because you cannot kill. It's a felony to kill an eagle. So
right.
Yeah, I was just like, whoa.
But I'll tell you this, bald eagle is kind of like turkey when you cook it.
If you say so.
Sarah Yusuf is here.
Let me say this real quick, Scotty.
Say it.
I saw something that I never saw in my life on this planet, which is crazy, was a wolf eel. A wolf. Swallow it. So, a wolf eel. A wolf eel is what they based the movie Alien. Remember Alien?
Yes. Yeah.
Where it bites you, and then out of its mouth comes another little mouth. So
another mouth comes out of the mouth? Yes,
that's where they based it on. The wolf eel is from Alaska, and it's a huge. It's a 20 wing span. I mean, you stretch your arms out from fingertail to fingertail on your left arm to your right arm. Huge and massive is your arm. Huge. And
hey, everybody out there listening, what's the biggest animal you've ever seen in the wild? I'm not talking about the zoo. Sarah, what's the biggest animal you've seen in the wild?
Aside from me, but I would say I've seen, giraffes, elephants, that sort of stuff.
In the wild?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So.
On top of your self-deprecating humor.
Right. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Wow, that went down the wrong throat. I'm telling you. I took a sip and
wrong pipe.
All I could do to get to the mute button fast enough.
So the wolf eel that I saw would bite into the carcass of a seafaring animal, but then its little mouth would scissor its way into
bite in, and then the little mouth would come out.
Yeah, so that's totally from Alien, and that's where they got a concept of Alien.
What it would look like. Yeah,
craziness. But
Romeldian said he saw a bison. It's the biggest animal he's seen in the wild.
And the funny part, if you go on YouTube, you'll see these bikers that come to Sturgis in South Dakota, and these girls were riding their bikes, motorcycle bikes, and with chaps and jeans, and they were. I don't know why people do this here in New York or Minnesota or Wisconsin. They try to take a picture of a bear close.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to do that. Same thing with the bison. And they would come and they would get really close and try to take a picture.
Hey, look, I got a little corn in my hand. If you want to try it, Mr. Bison, Mr. Tutunka.
And they would hook the girls and hook this girl and a
with
biker girl.
I mean, yeah.
and she was ripped off her chaps and pants, and all she had was her panties on.
Wow.
And so she was hanging by this bison with her chaps and pants on, and then she was ripped off and thrown in the ditch.
So
and her panties, just her pink panties.
Wow.
It was amazing.
I can honestly say I've never been gored by anything with horns, leaving me standing without my pants on. So,
she was okay. She survived, but her pants and her chaps didn't survive. So,
but the buffaloes, basically, I told you, don't fuck with me. So, pretty much, it's 11:11 where Barbie D is. How about that? So, time prompt. My daughter came to me and said, "Dad, it's 11:11." The other day. It was in the morning, I think, and I'm like, "Yeah, what's that mean to you?" Well, I don't know. So lots of cool things to teach my kids. Talk about conversational stuff.
I was listening to you, Chia, before the captain's cabin, and then I sang you the sea shanty. But I wanted to say this to your audience, something that I wrote down. And it says, we collectively create the meaning of time. It has no predetermined meaning until we give it meaning. To say that something like time is a social construction is not to say that it doesn't exist. It is merely an illusion, but instead that humans have created systems of meaning that creates a concept of time. So time is a man's construct. It's a human construct. And I think you were talking about that earlier.
Just maybe I hit on that. I don't know if it was tonight, but I've talked about, what we deem to be the irreplaceable moments of time in our existence. Think about that phrase for a second. How many of us have the irreplaceable moments of time that are stacked up behind us? Now, time may be a construct that we abide by, but it's also something that fleets by very quickly, whether we control it or not. All we can control is our response to it and how we let it interfere or govern or like right now. What's the overall thing right now? I got a week that I'm already halfway through my week, and I'm thinking of all the things. I have all these time constraints to get certain things accomplished by a certain time because I want a certain outcome. So I've constructed time, but everything we do is based on time. Getting my kids up for school, which I don't have to tomorrow. This will be the third snow day in a week for them, but cold and snow mixed. But there's time. Everything is governed by time. What you just for leisure want to sit and watch a TV show, you have to wait for the right time, unless you've got the channels where you can just call them up. It's like right now I watch certain series, not many of them, but there's certain things I like to watch. And while I can call it up anytime on demand, they only release one episode a week. So I'm like, I've just, or you know what the worst thing is? You wait a whole season for something, and they were doing this a lot during COVID. You wait a whole season, then that show comes out. Season 5 is now released. Watch away, watchers. And you go watch it, and you binge watch it for 2 days. And after 2 days, you got 6 months to wait for the next season to come out. You're like, well, I just watched all the shows in 12 hours. Now I got nothing to watch.
And you're right in saying that to say this, that people often ask me, my classes, my audience, and when I do lectures, they'll say, how long have your people been here? And I say, you ask a holy man, a wise man, oh, we've been here since the beginning of time. Our stories tell us that we've been here forever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the holy man. And then you ask an anthropologist, how long have have the Native Americans been here? They'll say, oh, well, according to carbon dating, they've been here 12,000 years. They came across the Bering Sea, the Bering Strait, and they're right too. Now, how can the holy man and the anthropologist be the same? Right. It's time, man construct, time.
Right.
And so
I get that.
The anthropologists are right, because there were 4 ice ages, 4, and they followed the animals across the Bering Sea in Alaska from Russia. And the Native Americans say our creation story tells us we've always been here. He's right too.
Isn't there some challenge to that theory, by the way, that's very recent? I saw something on this, a challenge to the Bering Strait theory, saying, no, the people were indigenous here before they crossed over from the Bering Strait.
I debate that. The reason why, Scotty, is because when you look on my backside as a child, right above my tailbone, my butt crack, more or less, to say the least.
I've never looked at your butt crack.
Yeah, I know, but
I've seen your butt cheeks, though, when you wear your breech clouts.
Yeah, but there is a something called a Mongolian spot that's bestowed upon us Native American children. Not all Native Americans, but some. And my tribe had it, so we came because we followed the animals, the bison and the elk and the buffalo and the moose across the Bering Strait to hunt. And I'm not saying that all Native Americans came from Mongolia, but most of us have a Mongolian spot on our backside. And it looked like a bruise. And the white doctors that would birth us said, oh, they're abusing the child. They're abusing the mother's abusing the child. It's like, no, it's just the way we were born. So people don't know that.
My prurient mind goes to, I suppose in the days, I could have used that as a pickup line on the reservation. You go to the reservation bar and you go, pardon me, yes, my name is Dr. So-and-so, and I'm doing an anthropological study on the Mongolian spot. Do any of you ladies here in the bar have a Mongolian spot? Please raise your hand and let me know, and I'll come by and we'll take a look. I'd like to record it for posterity and take some pictures. So, well, yeah, that bit could go on forever. But
yeah,
you get it.
You would be Dr. Pervert at that point. So
yeah, pretty much. No, this is for science.
So that's, the whole meaning is, and give you another, talking about earlier about linguistics, being a linguist myself with the language. Only kann bisschen Deutsch sprechen. Ich auch. I speak German as well as Lakota, as well as English. Poor English. But these there's the Dene Da, which are related to the Dene. And the Dene are Navajo in the southwest of Arizona. But the Dene Da live in the Yukon territory of Alaska, Yukon, Canada. But they're linguistically tied. Their linguistic stock lets them know they can talk to each other. So that tells me the story of that. Well, they came across from the Mongolian Strait or the Bering Sea Strait, that some stayed.
Those linguistic remnants still exist for both tribes, both people.
Resident. It is still intact. It's still there. And that's how you know a person by their linguistics. And so when people can say, I'm going to go see the Indians in South Dakota. Oh, who are you going to see? The Lakota, the Dakota, the Nakota. Who are you going to see? The Ojibwa, Anishinaabe? They don't know. They should know. But according to our linguistics, that's how you know a native people. Just like when people came from the Germanic tribes, there were German or Slavic or Romantic, French, Italian, Spanish, Romantic, Slavic nations. They all had this linguistic stock. And that's how you should know a person, by who they are in the Middle East, the Pakistan, the Indian, the Afghanistan tribes that are tribal, because we're all tribal in our own way.
Sure we are. Sarah, what do you think about this in general? Where are your thoughts going as you're listening to this?
About time or about virtue?
Any of this?
Well, both time and virtue, they are, like we were talking about earlier in the chat room, they are dependent on the perceiver, observer. With time especially, time is what we use to measure change. If something is considered timeless, it never changes, right? So as far as we can, yes, and in a way I do agree with Ruben in saying that time is in some ways is man-made. It's how we sort of interpret certain type of metrics in our world. Now when it comes to things like virtue, that's more of a cultural thing. So virtue is seems to be a means and ways of trying to get from point A to point B. Like if you live a virtuous life, you'll go to heaven, or go up the reincarnation ladder. Or the Egyptians had entire sets of death rituals for the pharaohs of saying had been judged like 33 or however many times about being a virtuous person, ending up having their heart weighed at the end.
See, and that's something I was never, what we were taught in what I believe theologically was there was no virtue that could get you to heaven of your own. It wasn't about your good works. It was about what was done for you. We used to use the argument in theology. If I could do good things to earn my place in heaven, then why, according to my religion, did Jesus have to die on the cross? If I could do it myself. If I can win the favor of God and be virtuous enough to get to heaven, why did Jesus die?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
That's all I was really going to say, was that religious construct. I think that there is this idea out there that if I do good things, I go to heaven, for those that believe that way. Yeah. And yet, I think that that's a construct all by itself, obviously.
Right. Well, with Christianity itself and what it seems like, at least from my when I look at the Old Testament versus the Newer Testament, there has to be a type of reconciling, because from the Old Testament, when you go from the beginning and Adam and everything, there seems to be a thing such as generational sin. Like if you look at people like Eve, every woman after Eve has to suffer from childbirth because of what happened, or the interpretation of we have to work for it. Essentially,
and Sarah capitalized springboard off of that. We believe, as Native Americans, Lakota, at least my tribe, believe in reincarnation, and when you die, you follow the ghost road, which is the Milky Way in your line of thinking.
You got to meet people don't know the old woman up there, right?
Yep, the old woman sits at the fork, because when you look farther enough down the ghost road, the Milky Way, there is a fork in the road, and in the fork, the cusp is an old woman that sits there, and she checks your hand for a tattoo or your temple. Now, God knows what it is she's looking for, but she'll say, "Scotty, did you live a good life?" And Scotty lies and says,
"Yes, I did. I was virtuous."
And she'd say, "Go to the right road, right side of the fork." And he would go, and it's a short road. Now, how did Native Americans know that there was a fork in that ghost road, the Milky Way, where it is shortened, and then the left lane went into the beyond, the nirvana, the heaven, the holy hunting grounds.
Mhm.
God knows. God's knows. But Scotty would
God
take the
knows.
right road and say, and he would go and then fall off and come back to Earth and be reborn again as a caterpillar or a frog or an elk or a bison, something. But he'd be reborn to make amends to what he's doing. And so, how did the Native Americans know that? How did they know there was a fork in the road? How did they know that they were going to be reincarnated? And we're not the only people that have reincarnation.
Yeah.
We're not the only people.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from the way I look at it, but first of all, Roger Rabbit, bite your tongue. So, but as far as, for things like virtue or what we consider virtues, like patience and moderation, and those are things that are not, that don't come naturally. It's not easy. It's something that we aspire, standards that we aspire to. So, and it's putting the work in, within, not only with your actions, but also your intentions, your energy, everything. So, at least, that's the way I look at it. So, because it's not easy. I mean, I could, try to moderate my temper, or I could be a glutton and, try to moderate my food intake, or whatever.
I totally agree, Sarah. Mm-hmm. And this morning I was on with Scotty and Ken, KB.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I want to say hey to Terry, who is in the room, Terry Pitts. So, good
Terry,
to see
Terry's back. And we were talking
just
this
for
morning.
Reference, the Speedo King of Virginia Beach, according to Ken. So,
Concha, the loincloth king. That's what we would say.
The loincloth king of South Dakota. That would be Ruben.
Virginia. Oh, thanks. But we were talking this morning, Sarah, in regards to another radio show, in how Jesus. Do you believe in Jesus, Ruben? And I was going to be a Catholic priest at one point, and I said, no, I didn't believe in that. It's not that I don't believe in Jesus. He was a rabbi. He was a teacher. He was good. Do I believe he was a son of man, a son of God? No. My own belief, so to speak, and not trying to get Christian here, because the people that came here in this country to Native America were persecuted as being Christian. Yeah. And then they became the persecutors to the Native Americans. Long story short, so just saying that there are many resurrection stories, and what I'm talking about is the archetype of humanity, where we have these different originalities where we arrive at it. We become, we have the story of the Hawaiian king who was resurrected, the northeastern
King Kamehameha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was killed and became the corn stalk to his people, a resurrection story. So we have these things. And real quick, just real fast, there are two dragons in the world, the queen mother, who's a serpent, and the king father, that is the eagle. And when they marry, they become a dragon. And in the West part of the culture, Smaug in Lord of the Rings hoards gold and virgins, but has nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. But he's a hoarder, and he's evil. He's a dragon. But in the East, the Asian dragon is bountiful, generous, forgiving, loving, opposite. Now, how did these two cultures resign themselves to two dragons? And that's the question. It's the archetype of our humanity, where we gave birth to mythology, yes, lore, legend, and we came across this because mythos, legend, and lore bring our consciousness. These stories are legends and lore and myth They bring our consciousness to a level that is spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe here we got Pearson is hanging in the wings here. Let me bring him in. Maybe Pearson's got some insight on that. How you doing, Pearson?
Hey, Scotty, I'm doing pretty well, and I think to extend on the point there, it sounds trivial, but I noticed, even in, legends or, things to, typical cautionary tales, I mean, you just notice a lot of similarities. I've studied a lot of, myths and legends from countries, especially older, older type urban legend, or not urban legends, but older type cautionary tales, myths, things that people would metaphorically use as a way to keep their, children in line type of, stories. And you notice a lot of similarities in those types of things. And, I think that humanity as a whole, no matter the culture, you start to notice, religiously and, even on day to day, life's the cultural practices are sometimes different, but a lot of the, fears, a lot of the struggles, and, a lot of the ideas of humanity as a whole are represented, in different ways in culture, of course, but, there's a lot of similarities that you notice between a lot of, religions. Of course, every religion tends to have a typical, narrative that they believe or a way to, get to, get up the metaphorical ladder for, peace, success, or happiness or virtue. But, I tend to notice a lot when it comes to basic morality. A lot of them type, of religions and, cultural mythos, like you were saying, they tend to have a lot of similarities. Like I noticed the other day, I I can't remember what video it was, but I was watching a video about mysteries, and it was about the whole language similarities between areas that most historians would say are not necessarily related. It's kind of an interesting thing to ponder because it's
It's all an interesting study. The whole anthropological similarities. Ruben brought it up earlier this evening when he was talking. I brought it up. I've written about it. There are over 600 different cultural, tribal traditions and stories and myths surrounding an ancient flood that took place in the world. We're talking about Noah's flood from the Judeo-Christian aspect, but there's over 600 different versions of that. Many overlap with each other. Some of them are from tribal tales and traditions to downright epics like Gilgamesh and so on. And by the way, I just want to say to Terry Pitts, Terry, he says, please, guys, Terry, I was just setting a frame of reference. For those of you who didn't recognize Robert Pitts, this is Terry from KB's show. So I don't care about the Speedo thing at all. And the loincloth thing, we were talking about Ruben, the breech clouts. Ruben Fast Source, the breech clout king of Red Rock Reservation. So there you go. No real ribbing.
And Scotty's right, because in many ways, many cultures do not have a concept of a devil, a demon, or very Christian. And so the people that were persecuted, Pearson, that left Europe, came to persecute us as Native Americans because we had no concept of a hell or a devil, a demon, Lucifer. We never had that concept that was bestowed upon us. And there's so many other people and tribes that have the same concept and belief that it's man-made. It's to keep us in check and order in that way. Whether you believe in Jesus or not, that's all right. I really don't care, but we never did. And so we go on, and life goes on, as Scotty well said. So,
Yeah.
I think for sure, there was definitely, I haven't studied enough to, have much of an opinion on, a lot of the ancient mythologies, but, for sure, when I think about, the Europeans resettling, I mean, I see a lot of the times, people referring to, you know, what, the people of the times did as a noble thing. But when it comes down to it, it really, it was the same thing that most people did in Europe. Well, I shouldn't say we, but certain people, I feel like, when you think of things like Mayflower, things like that, it's really the same concept. I mean, when it comes down to it, what we did to, well, I'm falling into the we trap, but what, those people in the, pilgrimage did to Native Americans for sure was very similar. And I think it comes down to, like you said, I think they, different tribes and different cultures, of course, have a different representation on life and moving on. And, I tend to have my own religious beliefs, of course, but, there's definitely a, huge amount of strife and a lot of issues that I believe that come from religion, and most of the time, uh, it's because people like to religion in itself, or belief in the unknown or scientifically unknown, is typically always the bad thing. The bad thing is you have people that exploit that. It's the same thing you see with Salem witch trials, same thing you seen with all that stuff.
I've been to Salem. I totally get it, Pearson, where it's all about belief. And Scotty and I have talked about this in many, many ways. I spoke at Northwestern University in just north of Chicago, shy of Milwaukee, and the professor was a black African-American professor, and he was making fun of me by saying, "Oh, you're," under his breath, "fast horse." Why do we call you that? Why is your name like that? And I told him the whole story of how Native Americans got their names. On the East Coast and West Coast of this country, they don't have those type of names. Just in the central part of the Cree country in Canada, down to the Kiowa and Comanche in Texas, we all have translated names. Just like when you came through Ellis Island here in New York, they said, "Oh, your name is Johansson? Well, now it's Johnson." And so they wrote it out.
Right.
My
own family, Robards, became Roberts.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Pearson, thanks for being here, by the way. I appreciate it. I appreciate your call. Good thoughts, brother.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. And so that's
the
whole thing of that kind of thought processes, the thought processes of America, where Wendy Robertson would know more than probably all of us, even myself, about Native Americans, because foreigners learned a lot more. They didn't have that kind of construct in front of them where Americans are shamed. They're ashamed of their heritage. They don't want to know why they did that to Native Americans or who they are and whatnot. They're ashamed. It's a shame factor, but foreigners are not. And I know many German, Spanish, Italian that are right up front and say, "We did bad things to you." I cried when I went to New Zealand and did a cultural ambassadorship. And after I shared my Four Direction song, an Aboriginal man, a New Zealander, Maori people, came up and said the darkest scar on America is what they did to your native people. And I just lost it. I cried like a bitch.
Yep.
I was just crying because it was true. You know, nobody ever said that to me. And Scotty owns it. Robert owns it. Sarah owns it. We all know what the real true happenings happened. And here we are, you know, and this is, we got to get over it. We got to live through it, grow through it, understand it. And that's the main thing.
See, it's easy for me to say that when it's not my culture that has suffered that. But again, like you and I say so much to each other, Ruben, you and I live in the here and the now. We weren't there doing the oppressing or being the oppressed. We have an obligation and responsibility to live in the now. That's why I call you Misu, my little brother. You call me Chia, your older brother. We're brothers. We don't even agree politically, but we that's not a problem for us because we have other areas that we focus on. So, Sarah, did you start to say something? And when I was talking,
I lost it. Yeah, you kept going.
I may have cut you off. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay.
And I see we got Professor Bauer sitting patiently, quietly, waiting for his turn.
Welcome, Professor.
Good evening, Professor.
Happy solstice, everyone. It's
That's right.
a time of great energetic change that we are going through. And it's a powerful time for all of us to be aware of not only the now, and most importantly, the past, which is what I think the subject is. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. It was aliens.
Well, there you go.
We are hybrids.
Thank you for joining us tonight, folks. There it is.
We are hybrids. We are a mixture of our cosmic cousins. And all of the traditions and beliefs and rituals and all of the different metaphors that have been handed down through various civilizations throughout the known history that we do have been specifically the result of information that we've been given about our past and that we've been given in order to maintain some level of continuity, or some people might consider control, as we've developed. Because if you look at all the different traditions, all the different belief systems, they all have a lot of very common characteristics and attributes.
Similarities, yes.
And that realization, once you have that, it's much easier to assimilate them individually and collectively to a point where you can have a sense of self in the now that we experience. So when we talk about all the different negative things that have occurred to various races and civilizations throughout, again, the history that we know, and the reason I say that is because we know very little about what our history really is. In fact, the majority of, in my opinion, in my way of thinking, the majority of the history that we know is extremely, shall we say, manipulated and mangled. It is not anywhere near what the reality of our history and therefore our origins really are. So one of the things that I highly recommend people get their into their book stack or knowledge stack is a book called Thinking in Destiny by Harold Percival. It was published in 1946, 48, 46, somewhere in there. And it really is a compendium of how we are, why we are, how and where we are in any given place and time. Ruben, you were talking about the Native American tradition of, you know, once you pass, you go into essentially the Milky Way path, and you have there's a
ghost road.
The ghost road, right? And you have a fork in the road as you go down that path, and you can either go to the right or to the left. One of the teachings in Thinking in Destiny is what's known as the metempsychosis. And the metempsychosis is what's known as the Great Sleep. and that's analogous to the ghost road. So when we pass through our frequency stamp that makes up who we are, that there's an iterative process, which is the nature of consciousness, which makes up all creation. One of the key characteristics of consciousness is constant creation, constant iterative expression of energy. And that energy then manifests into the materium, which is where we are now. But we are connected. We are essentially a frequency stamp of consciousness. And if this characteristic of consciousness being continuous creation is true, then it explains a number of the oddities in our current science and thinking that exists in what we call quantum mechanics or quantum physics, as well as into the spiritual realm. And it starts to give a sense of more of a sense of the reality that we experience in our minds. And our minds aren't in our brains. Our minds are the interface between consciousness and our biology. And that mind is essentially the frequency stamp of who we are. So for me, at least, once I came to that place in my thinking, it became so much easier to deal with all the different stories and all of the atrocities, as well as the incredible positive things that have happened throughout civilization, again, in our known history. I think that our history goes back at least 1 million or 2 or more years.
Much further back than we've been led to believe, I think.
That totally makes sense, Professor, because there's this whole archetype of our humanity that we came, whether we were black in origin or Asian in origin or whatever you have, but we are all having a creation story. We're all having a flood story. How is that coincidental in what you're saying and how we arrived at this point in place in time? We all have 5 toes and 5 fingers, and the stories that we regale of our humanity. Is it our humanity? Really, because that concept of the forked road in our mindset with traveling and dying, Native Lakota people believe in a star people. We believe we came out of the earth construct or we came from the stars in that way. And so we are all together. Scotty and I are the brothers. I call him brother. I call Dave brother. I call you brother. And we're not related, but we are human species. So we're always together. We got 5 toes and 5 fingers and a nose and whatnot.
Well, the relationship that we have and that we are all connected is that we are all a part of the consciousness from which we came. So there is no separation of self from me to you, Sarah, Scotty, Uncle Dave. We are all connected because we are all a part of the consciousness from which we came. So
how
in
important
all races,
is this? I got to interrupt and just ask, how important is this, do you believe, for the common person to know? Because most people I know, I would say the vast majority of people I know don't think about this stuff at all. They don't think that way. They know their mind doesn't go there. They don't think about that. And then they go, oh, where am I from? Oh, God created me. Okay, that's good. Moving on. Got to mow the lawn now. It's kind of the things that most people don't think through these things, because look at even yourself, Professor Bauer. How long has it taken you to really get from the one point where you were, let's say when you were in ministry, then musician, all the different computer tech guy, all these things that you've done, what finally brought you to that place where you are now? It was a long evolution in your own personal life to get you to that place. 99.9% of people out there don't think that way, and they don't.
But
care.
Scotty, Scotty, you have to realize, Chad, that's why you are here. I am here. Dave is here. Professor is here.
Yep. Sarah's
and
here.
It's expanding consciousness. When you expand consciousness, you cannot unexpand it. And so here we are talking and sharing and expanding consciousness. We're that little pebble in the water in the still pond where you throw it in, it echoes these ripples, and you cannot undo those ripples. It's just the way things go. And now we're learning.
It's up to.
We're the orators.
It's like ministers. They say how many people are called to be ministers, and they're the ones that minister the great truths of what they believe. I don't think
it's a calling or even the.
What do you think it is?
When I was baptized back in 1980 in the Pentecostal church, I had prophecy over me. Yep. And at that time I was 23, and I had this sense, I had several experiences that led me to that church, which eventually became where I had my music ministry. And the experiences were so profound and this was happening since my early, probably right about adolescence is when I can recall a sense of there's something else that's going on that I didn't understand. So to answer your question, Scotty, how long did it take me to get to where I am now? It's taken the last 65 years.
Lifetime.
In particular, where I'm at now with my thinking in the reality that I experience has really crystallized over the last 5 or 10 years. And in particular, the last 3 or 4, because what happened when I went through my the theological experience and became I didn't dive in or jump feet first. I did a jackknife. I just went in and soaked it up because that's just the nature.
I did the same thing.
That's just the nature of my personality, of my frequency stamp.
Sure.
So what I found though is that the more I got into it, the more I explored and experienced, the more questions I had. The more questions I had, the fewer answers I was given that were satisfactory to my experience. So from that point, for about the next 25 years, I continued on this sojourn of exploration, trying to find something that gave me a reasoned and rational explanation for the experience I was having. And that's when I found Taoism. And Taoism was so profound to me because it lacked all of the hierarchical constructs of typical and traditional Western theology. It was more akin to Buddhism and Hinduism, but even less than those even, because even they have somewhat, there's so many gods and so many different entities that in the spiritual realm, in those belief systems, that it was like, I can't keep track of all that shit. And it was far too
true.
And again, it became far too complex to gain an understanding, a definition of my experience.
But
so, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, Professor, you're right in saying everything you're saying, and so is Dave, and so is Chia Scotty, and Dave,
and Sarah too,
and I'm Sarah, and thank you, Sarah, for being here as well. We need a woman's perspective because we are all the goddess, we are all the gods, we are all the shamans, the prophets, the tarot readers, the priests. When we accept it and own it, then we can help do what we're doing. And we're doing it right now. The fact that we're talking, Professor, Scotty, the show, Dave, and his insights and whatnot, myself.
And Sarah too.
And Sarah as well, the priestess. We are all, it's when we let it go and let someone guide us. That should not be possible. We should guide ourselves. We have that, we're hardwired to be that priestess, that goddess, the god, the shaman, the prophet, the psychic, the healer, but we don't believe it. And simply because of that fact that we don't believe.
In light of all of that, and in light of what Professor Bauer said earlier, Pearson asked a question. Maybe this is a simple answer. Maybe it'll lead into something else here, but he asked pretty much, are people created equal?
Yes.
No. And
qualify your statements, gentlemen. You each have 30 seconds. Go.
That's impossible for Bauer. How does he trying to get the first sentence out?
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that.
He's on a different time. He's not linear time.
It first requires a definition of the word equal. And this is where the discourse and belief systems, the theologies, and all these things have to be explored and understood before you adopt them. The use of words is where a lot of stuff gets mangled, manipulated, and then becomes misinformation. So the reason I said no in the sense of equal is that the word equal as it's being used in the current societal fabric is wrong. It's the same thing with equality. There is an equity. All of these words have been hijacked and turned into something that they really aren't. So when I say no, we are not created equal, what I'm saying is that we are all created equally from the consciousness from which we came. Our individual frequency stamp that makes up our personality, our spirit, all the other definitions of our ethereal self, our astral self, those are individual, unique stamps. No one is the same. So there cannot be any equality because no one is the same. Everyone is an individual. And that individual expression of consciousness, which is what we come from, is the uniqueness that makes up who we are.
No, but you said earlier that, we're all part of the global consciousness.
Yeah.
I agree,
no,
Sarah.
That we are from the global consciousness.
But every grain of sand is its own thing.
Exactly. We are from it. We are not, and because of that, we are a part of it. But we are all individual, unique expressions of consciousness. Choice
is what determines who we are. And I say yes, doctor, professor, whoever you are, because Native Americans don't believe like that. Our consciousness is different. And so when you make a choice, you make your self choice and you decide what, how, when, where you're going to be, what you do. And we've done it for a millennia, 3 millennia in our own way. And I have to talk like a white man now because I'm among white men. So I have to share that in this conscious way. But if you came to a sweat lodge or a ceremony, a Sundance, you would think something else. Totally. Because then you're
something else than what I said?
Totally.
Well, see, I've done a boatload of Lakota lodges, and that's part of where I got the point.
No, what I'm saying is that you have to take off your watch and your clock and your phone and stand naked with us in the Sundance or the sweat lodge as a white man, as a man or a woman, and realize,
so it's a lot like a Turkish bath?
More or less. I wouldn't know what that is, Dave.
Well, see, I don't identify as a white man. I don't identify as a white man. I identify as a spirit having a human experience. It's the simple fact that this iteration has me in this pale face and in the construct that my biology is currently formed at is no different than you or somebody from Nigeria or somebody from Indonesia. It's no different. It's just that those are the expressions that, for whatever reason, whatever choices in the conscious field of creation, my unique expression of my consciousness and my identity stamp has shown up in this iteration like this. In fact, let me throw this out because I think Sarah might find this interesting. one of the concepts that, and I think this makes a lot of sense, is that we are actually made up of 12 different individuals, 6 masculine and 6 feminine. And in each iteration, we are one or the other of those 6. So, for example, I'm currently a male in this iteration. So in my construct, there are 5 other males, and there are still 6 females that make up my construct, that make up my iterative conscious creation. My next iteration will most likely be in a feminine form. So I will have 5 female counterparts that are with me, and I will still have the 6 masculine counterparts. Now, if this is even anywhere near a part of how we are actually, what happens to us when we become a creation from consciousness, then that explains a whole bunch of things, including a lot of this identity crisis that we're seeing in people, where a guy thinks he's a girl or a woman thinks she's a man. We look at it right now in our society and go, well, there's got to be some kind of mental dysfunction going on there. When in reality, it could be that in those expressions that they're experiencing, the frequency and the energetic shifts that we are encountering in the galactic fields that we are currently traveling in,
because we're moving into an Aquarian
kicking
world.
some of those off. Exactly. The Aquarian, when you look at what's been defined as what the difference between the Piscean and the Aquarian age, all of that lines up. Astrology and the astronomy that went into astrology is one of those key characteristics that we find throughout all civilizations that we have found.
We have 5 genders. Professor, we have 5 genders as Native Americans. We have straight male, straight female, gay male, gay female, and we have transgender. So I totally get what you're saying, and that we're not, because I have a penis and you have a penis and Sarah doesn't define us who we are. We are.
I have a saxophonist. I couldn't afford a pianist.
Dave's the exception, but
I couldn't afford a pianist. Pianos are expensive. I just got a saxophonist.
I had a great alternative to both the words penis and wiener as a weenus.
Well, that's part of your elbow. My kids are using that now.
I said, okay, I've never heard that before, but
they're
I like
calling
it.
each other weenuses. You're a weenus. And I go, hey. I go, Dad,
part of the elbow.
It's the little skin on your elbow. And I'm like, what? And I had to look it up. Sure enough.
Yeah.
So, for me, this entire experience of our current reality is so rich and it's so vast, and there's so many different definitions and expressions. And most importantly, there's all these experiences that we have, and how we sort through those experiences in our current iterations is our choice. Going back to your question, Scotty, about, so many people, they're too busy trying to figure out if they're going to go to McDonald's or to Burger King.
Right.
There is a transitive mental, what I'm calling a narrative, that's going on in society, and it's a carefully curated and crafted narrative that has been designed to take people and give them a great deal of confusion, resulting in a lot of angst. And because the whole idea of how to think has been replaced by what to think, it's created a numbness in the mental capacity of most people. And when you toss in the entire tsunami of information and constant chaos that's going on, hell, it's hard to sort through this stuff. So it's easier to go into neutral or put it on pause than it is to really go and explore. I have been extremely fortunate in that, as I was saying, my thinking that I've been expressing has really been crystallized over the last 3 to 5 years, and it's really, I've had downloads, and I'm sure we've all experienced this. One night, it was in 2019, about 4 years ago, in March, I woke up. I had my phone with my pen in the phone, and I was getting this flood of information that I couldn't contain in my mind. I had to start writing it down. And it was what became informatica. And informatica, what that means to me is it's the metrics in the matrix of reality. In other words, everything that we experience is information.
Yes.
Every bit of information is to inform, both in the sense of the way that the word has been used to inform somebody of something, but also to inform, to take and form something from the information that you've gotten. So I have been on, in fact, I've been getting so many downloads. I've been studying the Hermetic Principles. If you haven't read the Kabbalion, highly recommend it, because it starts breaking down the existence that we have in our reality. And when you strip out all these other belief systems and all these theologies and philosophies and scientific notations on constructs, whether it's Pythagorean or Platonic models, or in particular what Descartes did in creating the current scientific thought system that we have, you start to have a freer experience and exploration of the reality you experience and inhabit. Because you can look at it and go, I went through that whole Jesus thing. No, been there, done that. Thank you very much. I learned a lot, but that's not what reality is. That is not where my soul came from. And it's not the construct that I have to follow in order to achieve this salvation thing. Went through the same thing with all of the different Western systems. And that's why when I found Taoism and realized that Taoism is just being in harmony with oneself, within and without. It is seeking that natural resonance of existence.
Yes.
And when you do that, all of the positive things, the altruistic things that people think should be a part of the way one lives one's life, become natural. They're not forced. They're not on a list of things that one must do today in order to be a good person. They are natural because that's the way we exist.
And that's
once you get that freedom, it's game over for me. That's what happened to me.
What you're saying is very Native American, because a natural connection with nature. You're not above nature. You are with nature.
Exactly.
And exist. And when we put ourselves down and humble ourselves and be simple, like the Tao Te Ching and the Tao Ching, then we realize where we really exist. It's been that way. So you're not thinking like a white man.
Ruben, there's Elderberry has some questions for you. Maybe we'll have to talk about this another time in another show, but he had made mention about the Sundance, and he was referencing the old movie, the old Richard Harris movie from the late 60s, early 70s, A Man Called Horse.
Man Called Horse.
Where he went through the Sundance. I said, I typed in here, I said, Ruben's been through the Sundance.
Have you done a Sundance?
I've worked with that in it. I've never Sundance, but I get what you're saying.
You did. I thought you had.
No.
Scars and all.
My brother did, but
that's a brutal thing.
It is, and it's same thing coinciding with what Professor's saying in regards to nature, and
that's where I wanted to tie it in.
One does not have to experience that kind of in-depth pain or suffering, but we do through our ceremonies. Native Americans have ceremonies where we have to suffer for our art, our prayer.
Oh, I know that.
And yeah, Dave knows. So it's that whole processes of you take away the food, you take away the water, you take away 4 days of sleep on a vision quest, you take away your clothing, you're nude, you're in the sweat, and all these ceremonies were meant for men to experience in full nudity. Why? Because we were born nude and we're gonna die nude, and that's the way you're stripped of everything. And so you come into it wholeheartedly. And so to answer your question, Scotty, to Ted or whoever it was asking,
To Elderberry.
we have to suffer. Women don't have to do that. Why? Because women give birth. Women carry children. Women have the power.
Constantly suffer.
You constantly suffer,
especially around a bunch of old white men.
Yeah.
Okay, Ruben, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember right from what we learned when I was in school, and we spent a lot growing up in Minnesota, we spent a lot of time learning about the Lakota and the Native Americans and so on and so forth. But Sitting Bull was one of the youngest to go through the Sundance, was he not?
He was. And he gave 25 flesh offerings, and I've given 25 at a Sundance, where they prick your skin on your shoulder, and they cut you with a razor blade, and they put it with tobacco in a cloth, and you carry that for the rest of the time you're there. I've been brought out by 17 heyokas, clowns, sacred clowns, because the way I dress and the way I look. And I felt like I could be one of them. And the only way they would let me out of the Sundance circle was I had to think like a heyoka, a sacred clown. They brought me in forward. So I thought, I can't go out forward. I got to go out backwards. And that's a contrarious thought, being a contrary. And sometimes we have to, Professor, we have to think like a contrary and not think the way we do think. And I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying, Professor, because that's exactly what a heyoka would do. He doesn't think forward. He thinks backwards in order to get out. And we don't do that enough. Where
that
we need
explains
to.
so much about Bauer.
One of
this has been a very enlightening night.
Yes. And I hate to say
I've been revealed and exposed.
On that note, we are out of time for tonight. Ruben, I'm inviting you to come back, and you always are welcome here. I mean, Ruben is just like he's like a ghost, because there are times where I don't even know he's going to be there, and there he is. So, Ruben, you're welcome. I invite you back, but you show up whenever you want to. So that's perfect. But all that to say, I want to have you back to talk specifically. Elderberry was talking about this whole ceremony. He's asking questions that would take much longer than we have time to talk about. He asked, can you explain the ceremony involved with the Sundance, the time frame in which it's done, and all of that? And I think let's get you at a different time and let's talk about that specifically. Maybe this next Sunday, maybe next week sometime. Well, Sunday's Christmas, so we'll have to see if we even do a Sunday morning show. We might not.
Maybe bank on Friday or something like that. And I would love to have Dave, Lexi Dave, Uncle Dave, and Lexi Professor, Uncle Professor, and we just sit and Sarah, Tumi, Auntie Sarah, where we all can we need a woman's voice in this whole
the niece.
Yeah.
Auntie
in this whole in this whole episode. So it would just be really good. I always like to have a woman on deck to give a female perspective. It's necessary. We got 4 old guys talking and bamboozling and whatnot, but it's good to have a woman's say.
A spoonful of sugar. Yeah,
there you go.
Well, one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about, in particular, Ruben, because of the ritual experiences that you've had through your heritage and traditions, is a term called morphogenesis. And the morphogenesis is essentially the memory of consciousness, and how that affects and is so integral without us even knowing about it, how we do what we do and why we do what we do. So again, it's a concept of the memory and habits of nature and of consciousness, and rituals and various traditions are remnants that are the morphogenesis of previous iterations.
Well, Professor Bauer, I'm going to tell you right now, I need you to keep those thoughts in your necropants for tonight, and or your medicine pouch, whichever you carry. And
I'll put it back in my pipe.
Just you bringing up the topic. You know, Ruben, there's got to be a time where I want to talk to you about for 3 minutes, and I go, you can't even describe the topic in less than 3 minutes, so we're going to save it. So,
well, I had to hold true to my tradition of coming in and taking the last 3 minutes and extending it to 90.
Coming in the last few minutes and expanding it to another hour. So,
hey, look,
you
it's
can't
1
get a
a.m.
word in edgewise.
Hey.
Yes, Sarah. Sorry about that.
Sarah and I just sign on to listen. Really,
just sign on and sit back and listen.
I mean, yeah, because when it comes to global consciousness, I can see how that translates into your theory of into morphogenesis and how trauma in human history relates to what we need to do because we constantly re-traumatize each other, not just in groups and stuff, because with the deviation of human culture and all that, so whatever that is part of the global consciousness, it has to be something really basic.
No, yes. I totally agree, Sarah. I really want to hear a woman's perspective, native or non-native, it doesn't matter. It's something really that we need. You don't need to hear four dicks talking the whole time.
Just every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's it. Well, I will say I would go another hour, except I do have certain nuptial obligations that have nothing to do with having any fun. It has to do with, are you going to quit the radio show sometime tonight because you need to come to bed and you need to be up tomorrow and do this and this and this? So I do have a wife that,
so you have first world white man problems.
I have first world white man problem.
I have a painting that's waiting for me to throw paint at it. So
I used to be a night owl. I mean,
it's all chalked out on the canvas.
Yeah, and Ruben's got to pee. So there you
go. So there you go.
All right. So without dragging this on for another 17 minutes, I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Sarah, thank you for being here. It's always great hearing your take on things. I need you to talk even more. Come in and get yourself into the thick, the steaminess, the messy locker roomness of the guys. And
sir, you know that's why
shot collars or something.
Well, yes, sir, you know that's why I wait till about a half hour before I jump in, because I want to make sure you got all the time that you need.
There it is.
She was even accused of being Bauer-esque.
Yes. There it is.
Bring your lady folks. Bring your lady folks.
Yeah,
in
bring
I'm
them.
trying to convince the other girls to,
There's Ruben
to back me up, but it's hard.
There's Ruben in the back going, and bring all the other chicks too. That's what he actually just said. So
my favorite thing when somebody says, "Why'd you join Masonry?" To meet chicks.
To meet the chicks. and then they say, "Well, there are no women in Masonry," and you go, you give the great Bogart line from Casablanca. Well, I was misinformed. They said, "So, Mr. Blaine, why did you come to Casablanca?" So I came for the waters. And he said, "But you're in the middle of the desert, sir." And he says, "Well, I was misinformed." So,
thank you, Professor. Right. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
All right, Ruben. I love you, brother.
Love you guys.
I will see you later.
My day with you and ended my day with you.
And Sarah, I was going to say goodnight to Sarah again. She's gone. So
everybody have a wonderful holiday weekend, whatever it is that you celebrate. And now that we've gone through the shortest day of the year, we can look forward to more sunlight every day.
What a great solstice. It's all downhill till spring now. So
that's right.
Go. Happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah, happy Christmas, happy
blessings on everyone.
Happy Merry Christmas. All right. See you,
Your
Ruben.
own KBs in the morning, I guess.
Yes. And Professor, see you later. Good to have you
Cheers,
on, brother.
gentlemen. Have a great one, and we'll talk
Cheers.
soon.
All right. And Uncle Dave. Oh, I was pushing Uncle Dave. Good night. I was pushing. I thought I was pushing Professor Bowers.
You really want to go for another 17 minutes, don't you?
Good night. See you, Professor. All right, folks. That's it. That's all we got time for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll be back on Friday night, and I hope to see you on Friday night right here. And that's all I got so far. I'm not even going to announce for Sunday yet. Sunday morning, I have my children in from out of town, joining my young children that are here now, and my wife and I. And so I will not be doing a Sunday morning show. That does not mean, however, you will not hear from me at all on Christmas. So we'll see what happens. So everybody, you have a good night. Thank you for being here. And you know what? Just like we do at the radio audience, everybody live long and prosper.